12 people boarded a bus. Nobody said much, because where they were going wasn't another hearing. It wasn't another exhibit laid out on a folding table under fluorescent light. It was a house, the kind of street where kids leave their bikes out overnight, where neighbors wave from driveways, where nothing about the outside prepares you for what that address has come to mean. Before the bus ever reached that house, it made two other stops: a restaurant, a pharmacy, small, forgettable places, the kind you wouldn't remember a week later if nothing had happened afterward. Something happened afterward. And 3 years later, 12 strangers were retracing a route measured in minutes, a route the prosecution says matters more than almost anything else in this case. By the end of this, a jury will have to answer a question that doctors, investigators, and an entire family have been sitting with for 3 years. Was this calculated, or was it something else? A mind so consumed by illness that the law's usual definition of responsibility doesn't fit what actually happened. The prosecution says the evidence points to intent. The defense says Lindsay Clancy was suffering from severe postpartum psychosis, a real, recognized psychiatric emergency, and that this changes everything about how her actions should be understood. Both sides agree on what happened inside a house in Duxbury, Massachusetts, on the night of January 24th, 2023. They do not agree on why. That disagreement is the entire trial. The first stop on the jury's tour was a restaurant, the 3V in Plymouth. This is where Patrick Clancy picked up takeout that evening, food his wife had ordered earlier in the day. The second stop was a CVS in Kingston. Patrick went there for medicine, for Cora, the oldest of the couple's 3 children. While he was inside that pharmacy, he called Lindsay, just to make sure he was picking up the right thing. He testified about that call this week. On the stand, he described what she sounded like on the other end of the line. Quiet, he said, busy sounding. He thought she might be in the middle of giving the kids a bath. He hung up, finished his errand, drove home. He had no way of knowing that phone call would later be played back, second by second, in a courtroom, or that the sound of his wife, seeming simply busy, would become something attorneys on both sides would spend hours trying to interpret. Access to the house itself was carefully controlled. Jurors could walk the outside of the property. They could enter the basement and every room on the first and second floors. They weren't permitted to open closets, weren't permitted to touch anything inside. WBZ legal analyst Jennifer Roman said the purpose of the visit came down to scale and time, helping jurors understand exactly how many steps separated that basement from the bedroom window above it. How long that distance takes to walk. What it looks like, standing at that window, looking down at where someone would land. Because according to the timeline prosecutors have laid out, everything happened in the time it took one man to drive to a restaurant, then a pharmacy, then home again. Investigators say that after Patrick Clancy left the house, Lindsay Clancy strangled the couple's 3 children in the basement using exercise bands: 5-year-old Cora, 3-year-old Dawson, 8-month-old Callan. Investigators say she then cut herself and jumped from a second-story bedroom window. These are the facts both sides in this trial accept happened. What's contested isn't the sequence of events. It's what was happening inside Lindsay Clancy's mind while they occurred, and whether the legal standard for criminal responsibility can be applied to a mind in the state her defense argues hers was in that night. Earlier in the trial, jurors heard something that doesn't get easier to sit with, no matter how many times it's described in a courtroom. The actual 911 call Patrick Clancy made that night. According to CBS Boston's reporting, from inside the courtroom, Patrick can be heard on the recording saying, "I need help in the basement right now. She killed the kids." Lindsay Clancy sobbed as that recording played, her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking, according to reporters who were there. This week, the jury heard from the people who tried to save her children. Dr. Mark Tenorowicz was working the emergency room at Beth Israel Plymouth that night. He testified that 3-year-old Dawson had no pulse when he arrived, that medical staff worked on him for roughly 40 minutes. It did not look like his heart would ever start again, he told the court. Lindsay Clancy cried during that testimony. Dr. Benjamin Kaufman treated the youngest child, 8-month-old Callan. His team got the infant's heart beating again. But there was, he testified, essentially no brain function left. Callan was flown by helicopter to Boston Children's Hospital. He didn't survive. Earlier in the trial, jurors heard something that doesn't get easier to sit with, no matter how many times it's described in a courtroom. The actual 911 call Patrick Clancy made that night. According to CBS Boston's reporting, from inside the courtroom, Patrick can be heard on the recording saying, "I need help in the basement right now. She killed the kids." Lindsay Clancy sobbed as that recording played, her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking, according to reporters who were there. None of what you've just heard is in dispute between the two sides in this courtroom. What is in dispute is the argument the defense has signaled they intend to make in full, that in the weeks and months before that January night, Lindsay Clancy had been over-medicated and was suffering from a severe, medically recognized condition, postpartum psychosis, serious enough, they argue, that she lacked the criminal responsibility the law requires for a first-degree murder conviction. Postpartum psychosis is rare, but it is real. Psychiatrists recognize it as a genuine medical emergency, distinct from postpartum depression, capable, in its most severe form, of causing a break from reality so complete that the person experiencing it may not understand what they're doing or why while it's happening. Whether that was true for Lindsay Clancy on that specific night isn't something anyone outside that jury room can answer right now. It's the entire question this trial exists to resolve, and it hasn't been resolved yet. As of this week, proceedings are moving faster than expected. Defense attorney Kevin Reddington has said publicly that he believes the prosecution is close to running out of witnesses, though additional doctors are still expected to testify in the days ahead. Judge William Sullivan has told the jury the case remains ahead of schedule. Court resumes Monday morning. There's a version of this story that's simple, a calculated act met with the fullest consequence the law allows. There's another version that's simple in a different way. A woman consumed by an illness severe enough to erase her understanding of what she was doing, met with treatment instead of a life sentence. Both of those simple versions exist because two sides in a Plymouth courtroom believe sincerely that the evidence supports them. This isn't a story with an ending yet. 12 jurors are still listening. More testimony is still coming. And somewhere outside that courtroom, a father is living with a version of this story that doesn't get simpler no matter which way the verdict eventually falls. Because either answer means the same 3 children are still gone. We'll be following this trial as it continues. If you want to know what happens when the jury finally reaches a decision, that's what this channel is for.